I wish I knew these things earlier. These are not only my words, but many international students who have spoken to personally as well, that they wish they knew some of these things earlier before coming here into Australia or even after arriving in Australia as well. But they didn't. And that includes myself as well. I'm a part of that guilty process that I wish I knew these things. So in this video, I will give a brutally honest advice to my younger self, or maybe to yourself, because I've done my studies already. So these things might be able to help you plan your things better if you are coming to study in Australia or if you have just arrived in Australia. So this video is going to be fully packed with lots of tips and tricks. So let's get into the first thing, which will be about knowing scholarship opportunities. I wish I knew all these scholarship opportunities that are available for international students. Usually what happens is that we take the word of our education agent, and that was the case when I was applying for my university. I took his word. He was saying there was no specific scholarship opportunities available, but it couldn't be more wrong. In reality, there are scholarship opportunities for both domestic and for international students in Australia as well. And it's not necessarily that the scholarships will be available from the university only. It could be available through Australian government or through state or territory government itself, or sometimes private organizations, or even your home country governments as well. So if you are planning to study in Australia, my advice to you will be that please do your proper research on scholarship opportunities available. Leave no stone unturned. Look at the website of your university that you're planning to study. Apart from that, look at government websites, Australian government websites, state, territory government websites, and your home country government websites as well. Private organizations like Rotary Club usually have some scholarship opportunities as well. So if I was you, I would definitely make a list of all the opportunities available and see which one I can actually apply for as well. So some of them may have a specific requirements and some of them might be specific to certain countries only. But that will be the first thing. I wish I knew that there are so many different type of scholarship opportunities available, not just from the university, but from other providers as well. The second thing will be part-time work. I wish I knew that it will be difficult to get my first part-time job in Australia, at least a decent one. Look, I got my first part-time job after 1 month of arriving in Australia, and that was through a referral of my friend. But that was just a casual job doing dishwashing here and there. I actually got a proper part-time job after 7 months of arriving in Australia. So that can give you an idea that it is quite competitive to get a part-time job here. And it is not just about searching or finding these job opportunities, but it is also very important to know about how to balance your life, your studies, and your work when you're doing these part-time jobs as well. And it is very critical for everyone who is coming to study in Australia to balance these three aspects. A lot of times students might just focus on work and they may not pay that much attention to either their life or to their studies, and that can have a huge consequences. So time management will be a critical skill that you must acquire before coming to Australia. And if you can get some sort of a skill set before coming to Australia, that can also be very handy as well. Now we are planning to make a video on what sort of skill sets you can have before coming to Australia. So if you want us to make a video on that, please leave a comment, skill set, in the comment section below. But to help you right now, we have got a free template for time management that you can download on our website. We'll leave a link of that in the description box below. But make sure to watch this video till the end before you decide to go over and download that, as there are a few more other things you need to know about. Now next thing will be about the cost of living. I wish I knew that Australia is an expensive country to live in. Yes, the wages are quite good here in Australia, but over the last few years, the cost of living has been rising up much faster than that. And as an international student, every single dollar matters, because you will be responsible for managing expenses for your accommodation, food, transport, and other utilities and so on. And some of you would also like to pay some of your fee as well. So budgeting becomes a very critical aspect. And to be honest, I wasn't very good with my budgeting skills. I admit that I was studying accounting course, but still budgeting wasn't that favorite subject of mine. So it's very important to manage your money well by knowing how much money you are earning and how much money you can spend in each month. Of course, sometimes you may have to spend extra money because of various reasons that may be out of your control, like you might get sick and you may not be able to work that much, or you may spend some extra money buying things during special holiday season, or you might travel. So yeah, sometimes there could be unknown expenses coming up as well. So important and critical that you need to know about how to manage your budgets effectively. And I see some students who just arrive in Australia and decide to buy expensive gadgets and cars and so on. That can be really affecting your budgeting. I know you would like to have a best lifestyle possible, but sometimes it's good to hold on to those things until you get your things sorted for your studies first. The next thing I wish I knew about it was accommodation options. Now you might have heard that finding an accommodation in Australia right now is quite difficult as well. In general, in 2023, even the locals are finding it difficult to get a rental place, and rents have been going up significantly over the last year or so as well. So there are challenges in regards to finding good accommodation and also regarding the cost of these accommodations as well. So my advice will be to do research on multiple accommodation options that are available for yourself. You should definitely do a research whether on campus or off campus accommodations are better for yourself. And sometimes living in the city areas are usually quite expensive, so you may have to think whether it is easier or cheaper for you to live in the city areas or go out and living in the suburban areas. And sometimes it may work out that it is better to live in the city area itself. For example, if your work is in the city area or if you are studying in the city area, then it might make sense for you to live in the city areas to avoid any public transport expenses or car expenses. As if you are living in the same area where you are studying or working, then you might be able to save some extra cost for that. But if I was giving advice to myself, I would definitely book my accommodation nice and early, as it has been quite a challenge to find a good accommodation in Australia. If you would like to book one, we've got a link in the description box below, so you can go ahead and book through that link. Next thing I wish I knew about was emotional challenge. Not many people actually talk about it, but moving abroad and living by yourself can be a huge emotional challenge. Going away far from your family, your friends, and your loved ones is not a cup of tea for everyone. When I first came to Australia, one of the person who came along with me in the same flight left after a few days. Why? Because he just couldn't cope up with the pressure of living by himself. So managing your mental health, your emotions can be a bit of work, especially if you have lived with your family for all your life. So my advice will be, it's always important to prioritize your mental health, and there are some mental health services and resources available for international students that you can access if you would like to get some additional support regarding that. So there are organizations like Beyond Blue, and your university may have some additional counseling or support services as well. So if you are struggling to cope up emotionally all the challenges you are facing, I would highly recommend you to speak to either a healthcare professionals through these counseling bodies or through your university counseling services. The next one will be academic expectations. The chances are that Australian education system is different from your home country. There might be some similarities, but it is expected that there will be some differences in the education system. So whether it's about doing assignments, doing exams, or just general attending classes and how to deal with academic things, it can take a toll on international students. So it's important to understand the teaching style here in Australia, the grading system, and what are the expectations when you're studying here. A lot of times you may feel that your university or your educational institute are providing you more hands-on approach, which means that you may have to do a lot of heavy lifting of studies by yourself. It is expected in a university or vocational education system that you will take some honors of your own studies. So which means after attending lectures or tutorials, you're not done yet. You will need to do a lot of self-study as well at home in order to catch up for your studies, because there's a more emphasis on self-studies during your university and vocational system here in Australia. Of course, there are support systems available through your lecturers or tutors, but a lot of the emphasis will be for your self-studies. So my suggestion will be to learn about the differences about your home education and education system in Australia before you arrive. And once you are here, make sure to attend the orientation session and understand all the requirements when you're studying here. Many international students fail to understand the plagiarism requirement also, so it's very critical to understand those requirements. The next thing I wish I knew earlier is about networking. If you really want to progress your career in Australia, then network is the only way to go. Yeah, it is a bit of controversial statement, but networking will be your important aspect if you want to see a personal career growth. For many years, I was in a denial as well that I can do things on my own or only through few friends that I had. But if you really want to take the next steps in your career, you really need to make a good social and professional network in order to score some of those job roles. And over the last few years, I have not applied any single job myself. Many of the job roles I have managed to come across were referred to me by my professional network. Either they would send me a message through LinkedIn or through an email. So building a good professional network is a must if you are going to look forward for a career growth in Australia. And last but not the least on my list is regarding healthcare system. Now, Australia has a Medicare healthcare system, which most of the international students don't have access to. But you do have access to your overseas student health cover. So you need to understand how the Australian healthcare system works. We have a different level of medical facilities here. So if you are getting sick, you don't necessarily need to call 000 or emergency services. Sometimes going to a GP might be the best way to go. But hey, if it's an emergency, you need to call 000 for that. But even if you attend hospital, you may still have to wait if they see that your case is not an emergency. So don't get surprised if you go to a hospital here in Australia and you are still waiting to see some specialist or doctor for a while, as the cases are usually prioritized based on how critical the case is. But apart from hospitals, you can also do telehealth consultations with GPs in the clinics and other providers as well. So it's very important to understand how the healthcare system works in Australia in case you need to use it. So those were some of the things I wish I knew earlier, and I would love to hear if you are already in Australia, what sort of other things or suggestions you have for other students that they need to know about before they come to Australia, or for the newly arrived students as well. Now, if you are someone who really wants to build your network in Australia, I highly recommend you to watch this video that's appearing on screen here right now. In this video, I explain you about the right way of networking in Australia with step-by-step instructions. I cannot emphasize the importance of networking more and suggest you that you should not skip this video. Make sure to click on it before this video disappears, and I'll see you there.